Hello, everyone. I'm Meredith, and welcome to Conversations with Friends, where we are in search of people who we feel are really doing wonderful things for this community, wonderful things for the world, and as far as I'm concerned, they're really making an impact. So, you are about to meet a professor at Miami-Dade College, who teaches English classes in a very unique way. I want you to introduce you to Carlos Gonzalez, who has been teaching English for 30 years. And you're going to learn about how he teaches it and what his students, hopefully, he's hoping, right? And I'm sure it's working, are learning from his unique way of conveying English and literature. So, Carlos, it's good to have you on the program. I'm so happy to get to interview because when I was reading about you, I thought, oh my goodness, these are the people that everybody matters, but they really matter because they're the future, these young people. And what you've been doing at Miami-Dade College for, I want to say what, 30 years? Am I right? 30?
31.
Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. I'm off one year is I want to say a way ahead of your time. But could you briefly explain what it is you do? And I know I love some of these words that you use. So in terms of grief and joy and wonder, and let me see what else, movement, and wow, yeah.
So it's my pleasure to be here with you and to have this conversation. I've been working at Miami-Dade now for 31 years, as you said. I started out pretty much as very much a conventional teacher, and over time, and thanks to mentors, friends that I've met throughout my decades of teaching, that teaching has shifted and morphed and has gone more from just being something of the intellect to actually working with the entire body and sort of bringing together, not necessarily bringing together because it's already together, mind, heart, and body, speech and thought and action, and presenting that somehow in different ways to students. I teach writing, but I've done so through yoga, through all sorts of movement practices and meditation, and also through writing essays. Mm-hmm.
Was there a moment when you felt students need something more than just reading or writing? What comes to me, when I read about you and learned about you, is that it's all about the experience. They need to experience something in order to be able to convey information and to understand things in a deeper way.
Yeah, there's a long tradition of experiential learning, and I think that's where I think that's primarily the origins of maybe where I've come from. We definitely remember much more when we experience. I always tell students that we learn best from doing, and we learn best from actually when we make mistakes in doing, and or what we call mistakes, right? That's even framed probably in a negative way. But everything that doesn't turn out the way we think it should turn out often provides us with an opportunity to learn something if we pay attention, if we have that intention of slowing down enough to notice. And I think that's the element, the inner element, that I find so important with teaching writing or English, that we live in a very fragmented, very fast-paced environment, especially now more with social media, and people's attentions are very sort of like scattered. And to be able to ground yourself, to sort of settle down, to calm, and just to be at ease and to befriend maybe the turmoil inside the mind that one might be experiencing, and not be afraid of it, but actually just to notice it and allow it to quiet down so that we could be more settled and notice more. Today, I just finished a class where we were talking about storytelling, and we're reading this book called Storyworthy by Matthew Dix. Really great book, and he has this chapter where he talks about this thing he calls homework for life, and the homework for life basically is you write a sentence or two about a moment that you want to remember for that day, and you do that in like in an Excel sheet or in a Google sheet, and you do that daily so that you can go back and look at those moments, and from any of those moments you could write. And what he says, and what I have found with paying more attention, is actually that our life becomes sort of like slows down because we're actually noticing the moments rather than just living in a blur. And we notice the moments because we are giving ourselves that intention, that homework, which is to, like, by the end of the day, I need to write down something that was a story-worthy moment. And story-worthy moments are not big events. They're usually like the little things, like today sitting down with my granddaughter and doing the puzzle of animals, and then we counted the animals, and she took her little finger and pointed to each of the animals, and I helped her count to number 15. She's only 2, but she's
This is
counting.
your grandchild, right? I know
Yeah,
you.
my granddaughter.
Beautiful.
Yeah, and it's like that's a story. That's like a story-worthy moment that I'm taking with me today. And like that, there are a number of others, but it's just noticing enough to slow down and to befriend ourselves. It's like we're not broken.
That feels so good to hear this, because I think most of us, even if we are on a spiritual path, are often moving so quickly. We're just going, and it's hard to like savor that moment almost. Just that's what you're saying. What I'm getting from you is, just savor like a moment in your day, and hopefully more than one moment, instead of just rushing through life and not even it's lack of awareness, isn't it? And as you said, because of the times, it's getting faster. And I mean, I would think today that when these young people come in, that's all they know, right? They don't know things that like you're teaching them. They haven't even gotten that far in terms of their lives, right? To have they have the experiences, but they're probably not even aware,
Yeah.
are they?
And it's true not only for young people, it's I think it's true for all of us. We've quickly been immersed in this very fast moving river of technology, and it's going faster and faster, and it's sweeping so much in its current, and and it's unfortunate, but it's what we're working with. And the question becomes, what do we do? And meditation is an old technology that's been around for thousands of years, and it's accessible to everyone from no matter what perspective, spiritual practice or religion or non-religion there is. Everybody can meditate. Uh, and so that technology or that knowing is powerful, and it's actually essential, I think, more and more for where we are right now.
It reminds me of, and I feel like I heard it again in the last few weeks, and I don't remember who said it, but we become, and I know who said it originally, and you'll know too. We become human doings. We're just doing, but we're not human beings. And have we lost that sense of an in your in I know in the work that you do, you say one of the parts of that you're teaching the students is to what were they, grief, wonder, movement, lots more like that. I love the wonder part, that we've lost a sense of wonder about life. And it might happen, often it happens on a vacation. You have to almost go away, be in the water or be on a mountaintop to have that experience. And I remember a person that I worked with when I worked at the WLRN, she came back from this incredible trip that she had, and she said she had forgotten how to just slow down and just see she was on, I think, a sailing trip or something. And she said she had forgotten, how to just enjoy herself. She's just always going. She's a very active person. And I don't know, because she said she was going to change. I wonder, a lot of times we have these experiences, but we don't change, do we? We just keep, then we go back to our old ways. And that's, sadly, it's part of our society, as you say. It's just part of it. So let me ask you something. Carlos, how did you come to this? I mean, you came to this so many years ago. I don't want to say you were one of the first. People have been doing things like this, but you were ahead of your time teaching a course like this. You're teaching it at a college, Miami-Dade College, and I would think nobody was doing this then. Yeah.
Oh no, I'm not. I'm not the first,
You're not
and
the first.
I'm actually part of a long tradition of faculty members at Miami-Dade who have been rooted in this, and I would say, and these are the mentors, right? So one of my mentors, his name was McGregor Smith, and Max Smith, in the early 70s was doing this work. And I was fortunate enough when I first was hired at Miami-Dade in the early 90s to have met him after he retired.
Mhm.
And through him, a community of practitioners at Miami-Dade that became what is known as the Earth Ethics Institute. And that community it was a community of practice.
Mm.
It wasn't just it went beyond the college, and it became a community that existed outside the college. And it's really been my spiritual community, I could say, for the last like almost 30 years, through the people that I have befriended me through there. So definitely I am not alone, and I'm not the only one. And there's still people, not just me, doing this at the college and in different places. We find, we often think that we might be isolated or on our own, and in fact, we find each other everywhere. you know.
And
Um,
do we
yeah.
find sometimes we find each other when we're not even aware that we're looking? I mean, I shared this story, I don't know if I'm a program, probably have, that I was just so caught up in working in television for PBS, for WLRN, and we had a nightly show at that time. And yes, we did have yoga teachers on every once in a while. We had psychics. We was looking for interesting people. But then we had, more traditional people too. But I was just going every night doing a show. One day, a guy that just started working there because he burnt out from TV in New York, said to me, "We need to do something," and he found a meditation center. The Brahma Kumari Center had just opened. And he said, "You need to meditate," he said to me, and he needed to meditate. And I was like, I thought this was normal, being stressed, kind of on edge. Excuse me. Just some water I need. Every day. I thought that was like the way life was supposed to be. And I didn't think I was looking, really, Carlos. I didn't think I was searching for anything. And then all of a sudden, I ended up going because he was like bothering me so much to go. I thought I was being bothered, really. And that changed my life. That really changed my life. I had forgotten how to just be peaceful or even be silent. I was just going and going. So I'm wondering, not everybody knows that they're searching, right? Or that they're, like you say, you found a community. I don't know if you found it because you were looking, well, subconsciously we were looking, right? For something else.
Yeah. I mean, I think, that's a great mystery, right? Like how we end up being where we are. And I would just say, that's a moment of grace, that, you know, that we have, right? It's a gift. And yeah, we need to be receptive. And the question always is like, what creates the conditions for somebody to be receptive? It's complex. It goes back, maybe lots and lots of generations many lives, maybe.
Yeah.
And so we don't, you know, we can't take full credit for that, except that we could say, yeah, we could cooperate when we notice that there's an intent, you know, and that we can, once we have that sense of awareness that there's an intent, we could nurture it, you know, in the same way that we could ignore it. But nurturing leads to maybe a more like a deeper sense of ease and a sense of not so much seeking anymore, because there's, you know, like there's no seeking. It's like it's what is, you know,
Mm.
and what shows up, which might not be pleasant, you know. So this is not necessarily like, oh, you got out of jail, a get out of jail free card, you know, like that's not the case. It's like we're still in these human forms, going through life, which is always difficult. You know, there's like a difficult level to it. Um, but because there's a there's been an experience, you have a sense that you can relax even in the difficulty, or you could move in that direction. And even when you don't, you still know that it's there. So, you know, you can navigate maybe with more skill, some of that fast moving water.
Do do you see pretty quickly a change in your students who come into this, or this takes time and nurturing? I mean, you have students that come in, they probably never had a teacher like you, Carlos, before, right? I mean, you know, showing these things and kind of really getting into people's heads, right? And letting them go inside and try to figure out their lives. I mean, I would think they come in and it's pretty cut and dry, most classes.
Yeah.
So,
No, most of the time, I think there's a lot of confusion. They don't really know what, you
who is
know,
this guy, right?
yeah, that's usually the case. And I think the other part is like, no, I don't see the change. I've seen the changes over years of like students that have come back, and even, you know, that I have not been in contact with, and write me 10 years later, and they go, I remember your class, I remember what you said. And that always floors me, because I'm like, wow, I didn't know that anything was happening. And then I have a, like, there's a group, a handful of students over the years from Miami-Dade that are my friends, you know,
Mm.
they're part of my community. And that emerged out of the classroom experience that was mutual. It was, you know, it was my experience with their experience. So it wasn't like me giving something. It's like we were both sharing in something very powerful. And I've seen that. But, you know, with teaching at a place like Miami-Dade, where we only have students for like 2 years, part of what we do is that we, like, at least for me, like, I'm not into the results, you know. Our institution is very much into outcomes. So it's an outcomes based institution because of funding and everything else. I never buy into that language, because I give up on the results. I don't, those are not mine.
You're not looking for results. You're
No,
not.
I'm not, like, I'm doing what I think I'm supposed to be doing, and then whatever happens is whatever happens. And I don't have to get validated by the results. And maybe that's also a part of like the fact that I've been with the school for all these years, and I don't have a lot of maybe some of the other pressures that newer faculty have. But I mean, I've never worked that way anyway. It's just um it doesn't work for me, because then you become um, sort of imprisoned by that. By you only do it because there's going to be an effect, and then you can't do your action freely. You have to be motivated, outwardly motivated, and that doesn't.
For you.
Part
It's
of, part
very
of, part of the joy of this is that there's an inner part that is not connected to the results, and so it's a form of being that's very free.
so. Do they know that pretty quickly that's what you're going for. Do they understand that, or do they,
I think they sense it. I say it sometimes, but most of the times people don't get any of these things until they're ready to get it. And
True.
then what I know is that I plant seeds. And so if the conditions are right and there's water and there's soil, something's going to flourish. But I might not see that in the 2 years or in the semester, because oftentimes it's just one semester. It's a very short period of time.
Yeah, it's a short period, but in that time, I would think that most people get something different from you. I can feel it just talking to you, um, it reminds me of, in a sense, because the Brahma Kumaris meditation is such a big part, and spiritual knowledge too. But meditating is important, and it's a big part of our lives. And often I talk to people that aren't meditators, if they're stressed or they're interested, and sometimes I get I get response. I'm not trying, like I always say to people, I'm not selling anything. We don't even charge the Brahma Kumaris. So it's not, I'll joke, I'll go, I'm not selling anything. I said, but, maybe you want to come to the center, maybe, or we had this big program a few weeks ago with Shivani, this kind of world famous, one of our teachers, just because she helps people deal with their personal lives and what's going on in their lives. And I was telling people to come to our event and everything. And some people, it's like, they're not interested, and then there's others that, oh yeah, I'm going through something, or I'd like to grow, or I'd like to. And so you just have to put it out, whatever you believe. That's what I'm saying, right? You put it out, and you can't expect, maybe like you say, it could be years later, and maybe never, but you don't do it for that reason. You do it because you feel you have the need to.
Yeah, to do it. Yeah, freely.
And that's it. Not results. Anybody that's thinking of results for anything, sometimes I think it scares me now, in terms of trying to get, it's like control, saying I want to control. But I think, just listening to you and having read about you and everything, is that you really are having a big effect on their lives, and again, like you say, you might never know it years later. I remember there was a famous playwright. I went to Beach High, and I was actually taking religions when I was in high school, so I must have been interested in something spiritual. And there was the famous, I think he wrote, it might have been Children of a Lesser God. I'm not sure. He went back to Beach High years and years later, award-winning everything playwright, and he wanted to meet the teacher that had taught him, and he thanked her. He came in years later to thank her for what she did for his life. And she felt that because of her, he was influenced to write the play that he did. But she didn't know that, all those years, she didn't know. And maybe that's what you think, it's like some people are called upon maybe to be messengers but you can't think about whether you've succeeded or not.
Yeah. I think teaching is a sacred profession. It's a vocation, and so yeah, that's what we do as teachers. We do that in faith.
Beautiful. Do you have a spiritual discipline? You said you had like a group of people at Miami-Dade College. Do you have some kind of a practice, or is it more kind of independent and like free in terms of you just do what you're called to do?
Yeah. So I'm not affiliated with any
I didn't know.
particular tradition, but I do meditate, and I meditate, and I do gather with people. Like tonight, we'll have a meditation, a group that we work in the prison. So it's an outside group. We meet on Zoom, and we meet every 2 weeks, more or less. And that's a group that we're meditating together, like we're in solidarity meditating, and they write letters to women inside the prison. And that's it's a secular group that is spiritually grounded. And then I have a group of friends that I meet with on Zoom as well. So a lot of it is on Zoom, that were Miami-Dade faculty and who retired, and they're now in different parts of the world, and we meet every week and we do meditation practice. together.
So you are, you are on that path. I mean, you
Oh,
are,
yeah.
and
Yeah.
you're making effort. It isn't like you stopped, uh, once you felt you understood things. You're growing, is what you're doing, right? You're growing.
And we need community. We need each other. So this is not an individualistic approach. So, we need the nurturing of other people in order for us to continue to grow and also to find solace in times when we feel heartbroken. And so, life is difficult. And so I'm
Mm.
always reminded of the poet Auden and
Mm.
his poems that says, love one another or die. It's like
Mm.
we love is like community is the key, and community doesn't have to be big. It could be three people, and that's enough uh, for you to be able to have sustenance.
I'm really touched by this community because, you're saying like you say, it doesn't have to be a big amount of people. You just have to be connected to people that are on somewhat of the same page, right? The same page. And actually, I used to read Auden many, many years ago, and I think my first books. So when I went to college in the Midwest, and I wasn't yet on any kind of a spiritual path, was William Blake. Just loved William Blake. I actually feel like sometimes and I had a professor, a literature professor. You're bringing this memory back right now. I forgot all about this. It was Buber. It was William Blake, his poetry, and that's kind of when I think this third eye was being awakened then at some point. But then I forgot all about this and went on to other things, left it, and it was so many years later. So sometimes as you say, the seed might be planted.
Absolutely.
Nothing grows for a long time. I think that is maybe for a lot of people. But at the right moment, when the moment comes, something magical happens. I did want to mention, aside from that, you lead kind of meditation groups into the mountains, right? It's another one of your many projects. You got a lot of projects, don't you?
Yeah. So actually talking about Martin Buber and the book is I and Thou that I'm thinking of.
It was.
Yeah, and in that book he talks about walking the narrow ridge, and and the narrow ridge is when we treat each other as subjects instead of subject object. And so we
Mm.
know we're walking the ridge, the narrow ridge, when I treat you as a full person and we see each other as full human beings, as subjects, and that we treat all beings as subjects.
Mm.
Uh, and the place where I actually take people on retreat is called Narrow Ridge, after Martin Buber's book, that quote in that book, I and Thou.
Huh. Didn't
So
know that. Did not know that. I didn't read that.
yeah,
I
yeah,
didn't
and
see it. I mean,
it's a little community in East Tennessee, and thankfully they were not affected by the floods, the terrible flooding that took place over there.
in Tennessee.
But it's a community that organized on a land trust. It's an ecological community, and we do retreats there. We haven't the pandemic threw us off a bit,
Mm.
so we're trying to get ourselves situated to come back. Maybe this year is not going to happen, but it'll have to be next year. Um, and it's a wonderful time to take Miami people up to the foothills of over there and experience a slowing down, and sort of like a switch in climate, so that we could kind of like reset and become more aware.
Yeah,
Yeah.
beautiful. You know what? I could talk with you all day. There's so much to learn from you. I think that I've gone way over time. I'm not even sure because I lost track. As I say, I've learned a lot, and it's just really a thrill to me to know that there are professors like that, like you, that are out there. And as you said, there's probably a lot more than I, know, but people like you are impacting the community through the young people, and they're the ones, that are going to be called upon to create positive change in the world and good change. So it's a great pleasure to meet you,
Thank you.
Carlos Gonzalez, professor, Miami-Dade College. And I just want to read again just one thing about, was it the teacher who, your unique program, and you describe yourself, I think I said this at the beginning, as a professor of joy, grief, wonder, movement, and sitting. We didn't get into the sitting, but I think that's being still. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Carlos, it's a pleasure to meet you and get to talk.
Likewise, Meredith. Thank you so much.
Take care. Bye-bye.